Women's Advocate, what is the United Nations doing to promote women's rights? An interview with the Director of UN Women, Michelle Bachelet.
This entity of the UN Women, has been operational now for a little more than a year. You're the only director this entity ever had. How do you like it?
Well, it's a great experience. First of all, I feel that I have a huge honor to be working for half the humanity directly, but because when women are okay, everybody wins. It's a possibility of working for the whole humanity. So I think it's a fantastic and noble cause, very challenging though, and we need to work very strongly and very hard.
Did anything come up in the last year that you did not expect?
I think if you see what last year was characterized by, was on one hand the economic crisis, but also the Arab Spring. In some countries we have advanced much more, for example in Tunisia. In Libya we will have elections in June, we'll see what happens. But I have to tell you that not necessarily some political processes are cultural processes. So I think we need to continue working to support women's organization so women can play a more important role in the reshaping of their societies.
How did your experience as president of Chile, which we all know were before doing this, how did that help you?
Well, I think it's, being first a minister and in health and then defense and then a president of the republic helps you in many different ways. On one hand, you have been in the situation of making decisions, and sometimes tough decisions, and making decisions that means you have to prioritize. And on one hand, you can put yourself, if I may say, in the situation of people who are making decisions, who are the ones who make decisions in the political arena, in the economic arena. So you can sort of understand why people make that decision or that other decision. So it helps me also think on what are the kind of interventions that we have so to convince those people to make good decisions for women. That's one thing. And the other thing that, of course, it might be not that important, but also helps, having been a head of governments and head of state, I have had the opportunity to meet many of the head of state or head of government. So
you have a direct line to them.
Yes, and when I ask for meetings, I usually have a very good response, and I have a direct line with high authorities in any country. So that helps me in my job, that is also to make advocacy and try to win all the possible support for women.
How's your line with Chancellor Merkel? You're in a very similar situation.
Well, I met her, of course. I went to Germany as Minister of Defense first, and then as President. We worked together very well. We developed a lot of agreements, and I haven't been able to see her afterwards, but I'm looking forward to go to Germany to an official visit and continue working with the German government and the German parliament to see how not only how women's issues in Germany, because even in developed world we need to continue progressing and giving women more opportunities, but also how Germany continues supporting us to do our job in the developing world.
So you said there's probably a huge difference dealing with, for gender equality with developing nations and industrialized countries. How's Germany doing for gender equality and women empowerment?
Well, I think it has advanced a lot in terms of, of course, the rights of health, education, etc. You have women in many different places.
But there's a discussion at the moment about having women's quota for the boards of big companies. What do you think of that?
I have to tell you that I'm completely pro all kinds of special transitional measures like a quota. And but because of two reasons. First, because what I've seen in my life is that usually it doesn't come graciously. It's not that everybody's saying, oh, come on, women, come here, go into the board. The experience started with Norway, and Norway already doing for more than 5 years. At the beginning, Norway did it as voluntary. It did not work. They had to put a quota, specific quota, mandatory. It worked well, but I have to tell you the more important issue is not about having certain numbers of women. It's about that the performance of those companies improved having women on boards. The companies are discussing how to recover from the crisis. And one of the things that comes always across is diversity. And having more women on board, it's also a very important way of ensuring diversity and ensuring also many of the consumers are women. So it has the women's perspective and their contribution.
You've mentioned the economic crisis twice now. Would you say that in the past years, that was the biggest obstacle to your work here?
No, not the biggest. It was one, of course, obstacle in terms of two areas. First of all, in many places, they were taken because of the needs to do internal adjustment. There was a lot of social programs who were downsized. And usually when you downsize those programs, affect essentially women and children. So women were affected in that sense. The second thing is because of the loss of employment due to the crisis, it's calculated that something like 53% of women went into unemployment. And the third thing is that when we're talking about countries who are big contributors to the UN or who are big donors to UN Women, many of them, because of the crisis, could not, if I would say,
bring up the money
needed. So I would say in that sense affected. But it's not the only issue. I mean, there are political issues, there are cultural issues.
But you said it's not the biggest one. What would you consider being the biggest obstacle? Is it still in the heads of people, in the cultures of societies?
It's still cultural. It's still cultural. And it's still also political in terms of the needs of be more conscious and more aware that gender equality is not only the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do. That women are not only interested in giving more equality to women because women deserve. Of course, they deserve. Women have rights as everyone has human rights. So, but it's half of the humanity, and if a country loses that tremendous potential, it's losing part of their capacity of developing, and it is the right thing to do. But it's also smart, and everybody wins, and nations win, and the economy is better, and the society is better.
Is there any project by UN Women, a concrete project where you say, this is it, this is what we need to do, this is ideal, it shows in a nutshell what we're all about?
Energy. We know, and with a very good example, we had a great project with a Barefoot College in India. They train grandmothers, illiterate grandmothers from Africa and other places. They train us as solar engineers, if I may use that word. I mean, they learn how to do solar panels, how to produce them. They go back to their communities, small villages. They produce this, they teach others, they sell their services, and they can provide light, they can ensure that they have heating, they have light, electricity, they can also have their income, and they can train others, and they empower everyone.
Well, let's stick with sustainable development. In June, we have Rio +20, which is, of course, one of the follow-up events to the first Rio conference 20 years ago when the world came together to save the planet. Yeah. Are the women better at sustainable development than the men?
I cannot say that women are better than the men. I can tell you that women are essential for sustainable development. When a woman goes to the bush and collect wood or use the grass and without an ecological point of view, environment has an effect. It's not only about big industry with big gas emission, it's also what us human beings on a daily basis are affecting the environment. So I would believe that it's not that we're better, but we're essential, and usually in the policies and the definitions, women are excluded. So if we don't incorporate the concept of understanding that women are part of the solution, not only on the problem, or the solution, we won't be able to achieve sustainable development.
Aren't you sometimes a little frustrated with the pace of the UN? You come from being president of Chile. You had the strings in your hand, so to say. And now here you're in this great body. You have all these huge conferences, for example, Rio +20, but it takes so long to get things done. Is that frustrating?
Well, I always I mean, what frustrates me the most is not to be able to obtain faster results in every kind of things. I mean, not only in conference, but also everywhere. And sometimes I always say that I would describe myself here like being a minister, because the UN are the member states, and we are agencies, programs, funds who do our job, but we need to have the approval of the member states. So I would say, yes, sometimes you feel like, how could you have the best arguments? How can we build a stronger case so we can really advance faster? Because when you think on one issue that probably is one of the worst, is that every minute a woman dies because of giving birth or a complication of something so normal. We're not talking about a new disease that nobody knows what to do. We're talking about something that is natural, that can have complication if we don't know. But I'm a doctor, so I know exactly that we know what to do. So sometimes that makes me very, very, I would say, impatient. How we could never forget that why we're here. We're here to work for the people.
Obviously, you're doing this with a lot of energy here. Can we hope to see you here longer than your term, or might you be interested in politics in Chile again?
Well, the only thing that I can tell you is the truth. I'm completely dedicated to this job. I'm completely committed. I have no other agenda, and I'll continue working here as long as I believe that this is the essential thing that I have to do.
Ms. Bachelet, thank you very much for this interview and your time.
Thank you very much to you and to all people who see the program.